when we launch the pool as an instance, it will go ahead and use these configuration parameters. Now we'll move on to packages. One of the most powerful things about Spark is not just the Spark engine itself, but it's the ecosystem which goes around it. You have full access to the Python ecosystem, to the PySpark ecosystem, the Scala ecosystem. And that means we can add additional functionality through additional libraries inside of the Spark pool. And there's a couple of different ways we can do that. We can do it as part of the pool definition itself. So every time that pool starts, we get a pre-built set of libraries which are the same and are very consistent. Or we can do it at the session level, and that means that we go ahead and whenever we start a new session, which a notebook is a new session, then we're going to go ahead and specify a different set of packages than were available at the pool level. And that allows you to have different notebooks which have different characteristics and behaviors, call different APIs or different versions of APIs, independent of each other. And so these are two very important pieces of the configuring and setting up a Spark pool, the Spark configuration and whether you're going to use session level packages or just pool level packages inside of the pool definition. Now we've got tags, which we're not going to do anything with. I'm going to go hit review and create, and everything is good. So now we're just going to go ahead and hit create. So while we're going ahead and creating, and this will only take a couple of minutes, I want to go and make sure that we're all on the same understanding of what a Spark pool is. So the first thing is that a Spark pool is not actually a cluster. It is a metadata definition. It's a bunch of configuration parameters. You just saw all of those. That says that when you spin up a Spark instance, this is what I want it to look like. So in this case, we have one called live demo. And there we can see that it's already gone ahead and created this for us. So we can go ahead and submit work to this Spark pool. And let's say I'm submitting the work. It's going to look and see and say, okay, is there already a Spark instance that is using the configuration parameters from live demo and user Ewan? And the answer is going to be no. So in that case, we're going to spin up a Spark instance, and it's going to go ahead and submit my work to it, and it's going to go ahead and execute. And then I can submit a second piece of work and a third piece of work. And as long as we haven't hit that timeout that you saw on the previous page, then the Spark instance will stay up and running. And as long as I have enough cores available, it'll just keep running those jobs. And that essentially is my Spark instance. Nobody else can use it. It means I get nice workload isolation. It means I get nice security isolation. So now let's say that we gave Kaiser access to the same Spark pool. And Kaiser comes in after I've started running all my jobs, and Kaiser goes ahead and submits his job to the Spark pool. It's going to look and see if there is already a Spark instance that is the intersection of Kaiser and live demo. And when it doesn't find one, it's going to spin another Spark instance. And Kaiser's going to go ahead and submit his work to that instance. But it's going to be isolated from my work, so we won't stand on each other. We'll be secured so that I can't see any of the data he's generating unless he wants me to, and he won't be able to see any of the data that I'm generating. So that's a pretty big difference in terms of the definition of a Spark pool and how it works versus the traditional Spark way of defining clusters and potentially allowing one user or many users. Now, some of the criteria when we think about what we would do and what different settings we'd have and why we would have them inside of a Spark pool. So let's say that Kaiser's really not trusted, that he tends to spend lots and lots of money and he's very careless with it. We might only allow him a 5-node auto-scale cluster from 3 to 5 nodes, because that way he can't spend that much money. I, on the other hand, am obviously deeply trusted, so I would be allowed access to a static cluster, perhaps, a static pool rather, that has 200 nodes in it, because I'm trusted to know how to manage the costs. And we just create those as two different pools, and then Kaiser has access to one and I have access to another one. And so it's a way of managing resource allocation is the Spark pool. It's also a way of managing budget and spend, and who spends money, who's allowed to spend more money and less money. You can also use it as a way of managing spend at a cost center level. Perhaps one cost center only has access to one Spark pool and a different cost center only has access to another Spark pool. We also see teams who use Spark pools and have dev, test, and PM Spark pools, which are different sizes and have different characteristics. So a dev